Exorcist 2, despite being a colossal waste of film, made over 2 times its budget back. You know what that means? Sequel. William Peter Blatty originally didn't want anything to do with a sequel until he came up with the idea for a film called Legion, which was intended to be a sequel to the original movie, ignoring the second film completely. William Friedkin was originally going to direct, but due to conflicting opinions between him and Blatty, he dropped out. After this, the film went into development hell. During this period, Blatty decided to write the story as a book, which became a bestseller. The book came out in 1983 and was finally made into a film 7 years later. Blatty then wanted John Carpenter to direct it. However, Carpenter dropped out because during talks it became apparent that Blatty really wanted to direct the movie himself. Finally, he did. He'd previously directed The Ninth Configuration, which was also based on one of his books, so he wasn't a stranger to directing. The film wasn't a huge commercial or critical success, however in the years since its release, it has grown a larger following and people are really seeing it as its own film instead of being a straight sequel. After seeing The Exorcist 2, I knew that the third movie was not going to be a retread of the original. Say what you will about the second movie, but at least they tried something different. It failed miserably, but they tried. With The Exorcist 3, they tried something very different, and it massively succeeded. I'd been put off watching the movie for years because I was afraid I would be massively disappointed at it, and at first I was a little bit put off by how different the film really was, but when I finally sat back and accepted what I was watching, I really got into the film. The film is about Lieutenant Kinderman from the first movie. This time he's played by George C. Scott, since Lee J. Cobb, the person who played Kinderman in the original, passed away 3 years after the original's release. Another character also returns and once again is played by a different actor. Father Dyer is no longer played by William O'Malley and is replaced by Ed Flanders, and yes, I did say Ed, not Ned.
Oakley dokley.
Kinderman and Father Dyer are now really good friends and regularly see films together, following on the gag from the first film where Kinderman never has anyone to see films with. On the 15th anniversary of the events of the first movie, they decide to go and see It's a Wonderful Life, their mutual favourite film together. At the same time, a string of murders are going on. After being hospitalised, Father Dyer is later murdered inside of his hospital room. All these murders are linked together as being done by the Gemini killer, who was executed 15 years prior. The thing that confirms that it cannot be a copycat is that they lied to the press about some of the killer's mutilations to stop people from coming in and lying about how they are the Gemini killer. One of the doctors in the hospital tells Kinderman about a man who was inside of their psychiatric ward and who was found stumbling around 15 years prior. When Kinderman goes to see him, he sees Father Karras, the only character from the first film who's played by the same actor. The person isn't aware of who Karras is, but he says that he's the Gemini killer and that he murdered Father Dyer. We find out that after the Gemini killer was killed, he made a deal with Pazuzu to transfer his soul into the dead body of Father Karras. However, since the body was dead, it took 15 years for all the brain cells to grow back properly, explaining the amnesia. For the rest of the film, Kinderman is finding out about the Gemini killer, who's constantly changing from Father Karras to Brad Dourif, and also trying to find out who the Gemini killer's next victim is, and trying to stop him from doing it. Right off the bat, people who haven't seen the film will be wondering, well, apart from the characters, what links this film to the first film? Honestly, almost nothing, but that's what I like about it so much. It could have simply retreaded the original movie, but the fact that it tries to be something unique and different is definitely good. The film has a ton of atmosphere and really captures the tone of the original movie really well while trying to add an extra layer of creepy, unnerving moments. The acting is really superb in the film and Brad Dourif is absolutely phenomenal. I'm a massive fan of Brad Dourif anyway, and I honestly think his performance in this is one of his best. It's insane, creepy, and perfect for the psychotic character that he's playing. Blatty's direction is genius, and he really tries to make a film that can get into your head, and for the most part it succeeds. Also, The Exorcist 3 has what many people call the most effective jump scare of all time. I won't spoil it, but there are multiple videos of it on YouTube for people who do want to see it. One of the most amazing things about the film is how well it holds up, especially as there were so many problems behind the scenes. There were constant reshoots, rewrites, and the entire ending was changed into a massively inferior one. Also, tons of things were changed and cut out, leaving Blatty's original view kind of clouded. There was a director's cut originally made, but all the footage shot for it was scrapped, meaning that it will never be seen again. However, this is simply what the studio has said, and film critic Mark Kermode, who cites the original film as his favourite film of all time, has been searching for the footage for a long time now. Maybe we'll see it because Mark is the person who's responsible for returning the infamous spider walk scene to the director's cut of the original movie from elements that were long thought lost. There is a fan edit called Legion that supposedly cuts out a lot of the unneeded moments and basically tries to recreate some of Blatty's original vision without adding any footage. Brad Dourif even hosted a screening of it at a convention, so maybe it's good. A lot of the reviews I read for it say good things, so I guess I'll give it a watch sometime. The film didn't spend much time in post-production because they needed to rush a release date to come out just before Repossessed, a parody of the original Exorcist starring Linda Blair, came out. I actually watched Repossessed before I'd even seen the original and I thought it was okay. I watched it recently and realised that it's terrible. It's not a very good parody at all, and at many times it goes into Seltzerberg territory. Well, that's when there are gags. It's a surprisingly gagless film and the ending is absolutely atrocious. Not even something Seltzerberg would use, but then that's probably because it doesn't blatantly rip something else off. But anyway, that's off the topic. Fuck that movie. I really liked The Exorcist 3. It exceeded my expectations. It's an atmospheric movie that thrills and chills its audience as well as making them think. You can definitely see that it was written by the original writer since the dialogue is extremely similar and the film follows on from the events extremely well also. The acting is really good, the writing / direction is also fantastic, and apart from a few flaws here and there, I don't really have much to complain about. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as the original, but hey, it could have been much worse, like the previous movie. I give The Exorcist 3 an A.